10 minutes late. Right, hello everyone, and welcome to Splendid Isolation on my channel. IronDuke's had some technical problems, and he's been working on it on his time in Australia, which means he's been all night, probably into the early hours of the morning, and it hasn't been entirely sorted, and so he's tired and he's gone off to bed. So I'm hosting a spin-off. The multiverse. This is the Splendid Isolation multiverse on my channel, and I was joined by Aubrey. Maybe she'll come back in a minute. But Mercian, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. Thanks for having us on the stream. Hopefully get more people as the stream goes on. It's a bit last minute and slapdash, I suppose.
It really, yeah, like about an hour ago, I was like, oh yeah, let's do this. We'll give the people what they want. They come expecting. The show must go on. The show must go on, and we should have Mitch. Hopefully, we should have a few others. But welcome everybody. I see a few people popping in chat. So, Saleh alaikum. What's alaikum salam? That was it. So, mashallah. That's the Greek. I picked up a bit of Arabic phrasing when I was overseas. So, there you go. So story-wise, I know Aubrey wanted to talk about the Iran stuff. Mercian, do you have a topic you wanted to talk about tonight?
Yeah. So I watched The Lotus Eaters tonight, and I think it was Dan's segment, and they were basically talking about the generational sort of unfairness, specifically around housing and everything that's generational unfairness. So how boomers basically own everything and how messed up everything is.
Oh, okay. And
yeah,
sorry, continue.
No, I literally. I'll just leave it there. Sort of see what everyone's thoughts are. And
Yeah.
I know there aren't many of us, but we'll soldier on, I'm sure. See, I'm thinking about this because of my position in life, as I'm looking to move house, and good God, it's just a shit show.
I mean, I'm going to be honest with you. Hello Aubrey, by the way. Welcome welcome Aubrey to.
Thank you so much.
Is this the first? I think this is the first time you're on my channel, Aubrey.
Yes, it is.
This is the first time.
How exciting!
Yeah,
Thanks for having me.
Well, welcome to the Splendid Isolation multiverse. I guess the spin-off, the crazy spin-off episode, the Halloween special.
Very exciting.
No,
there's not going to be any reading of like old books by French authors, right?
Well, you see, IronDuke is a gentleman. Of course, I'm not. I'm a hedonistic middle class to upper class Englishman. So no, I'm joking. No. There's no dodgy reading of any graphical tales of French debauchery. I mean, yeah. Well, not tonight anyway. Not tonight.
Good to know. You're a gentleman.
What's the deepest lore on that before we talk about the housing market?
Well, I don't know if you know. You probably. I did this before I actually was formally introduced to you, actually, Mercy. And it was I did a bet saying to get to 1,000 subscribers. I still haven't got to it yet, but I think at this point I was like on 700 subscribers, and I said if I can't get to 1,000, I want to get to 1,000 like in 2 weeks or something like that. and somebody said, "What happens if you don't do that?" And I said, "Tell you what, if I don't get to that, I'll start I'll start reading 120 Days of Sodom by
Marquis de Sade.
Marquis de Sade. Yeah, I'd probably say his name on YouTube without being too concerned, because yeah, 120
Couldn't
Days
read
of
it.
Sodom, and did a live reading on my channel, which is still up, and unfortunately it's the most popular video stream by far
That's
on
great.
my channel. And
Mercy, and it was so awesome. Duke and I were in the audience, and it was so great hearing AI just go, "Oh dear, oh dear," at certain
Would
points.
Did I find this video under your live tab or videos tab?
it'll be under live. It's under
Yes.
live, and
Live.
but
I've typed in popular. So the 120 Days of Sodom, is that the one?
Yes.
that's the one. Yeah.
Yeah, your second most viewed stream. Second only to the politics of Skyrim.
Filthy book.
Oh, Skyrim's still ahead. Oh, good. I'm glad something positive. I will say though, before I had very little like female viewership of the channel. 120 Days of Sodom, like literally gender balanced it out. I know it's shocking.
Did it really?
It did, yeah.
How
Like,
funny is that?
before, I think female viewership was around 2%, 2-3%. Afterwards, it was like 23%, 24%. So
That
I was
is
like,
hilarious.
with messages sort of like, could you read this book for me? Could you read it at this time?
yeah. Yeah, it's kind of like
you were supposed to say, no, nothing like that. My female viewers would never do anything like that.
they probably would. They probably would, to be honest. And I'm absolutely quite frank. I had like this dark premonition of what might be asked, so I quickly backed out of it any more further thing, because it's like you know, like when you're messing around with a Ouija board and you're sort of scared of the repercussion. It was like that, you know. I was like, oh no, I'm summoning all the worst. I'm summoning some dark elements of the internet, and of course my algorithm was completely messed up for weeks and weeks.
I bet it was.
Yeah, it really
I
was.
bet it was.
It was a dark time, and
It
very dark time.
You're great. Yeah, it was wonderful. You got to listen to it, Mercy. And it's such a filthy book. Like, it's not erotic and hot. Like, it's just filth. And
yeah,
you got through it well. You did well. Yeah.
I will say, if you want to kill the liberal within you, that book is like a self purge. Like I still had like a bit of like this like liberal, you know, things from growing. Yeah, but maybe not sort of, yeah, libertine, liberal, individualistic sort of things. That killed it. I think that sort of like literally like buggered it and killed it out of the system, quite literally, inside there with the booking. It really did.
You know, I read though that Marquis de Sade was imprisoned at the time that he wrote that, I believe, and
Yes.
he wrote it to be truly as disgusting as he possibly could. So I'm not sure he was really into those things. I think he was doing this as kind of a political statement and kind of an FU to everybody. And yeah, look at the book remains.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, the book is, there's like clear attacks on Christianity.
Oh yeah,
Roman Catholic Church, the even like the hierarchy of France in terms of nobility, the king, the courtly system, even the peasantry, which is, I mean, it's kind of like, you know, in some ways, like, he has like this bizarre thing where you have like this judge character who just who enjoys in just like sort of African warlord level sort of sexual and physical violence against peasants. Bearing in mind they're meant to be the, you know, the heroes of the French people, that sort of stuff, you know, with the revolution.
Well, and also taking like royalty, or like, you know, people that have that that are high up, right? Taking their daughters. That's a big thing too of his.
Yeah, I mean, and there was like the thing there is, I think with Desaad, I think he generally was like just mad, in the sense of he had this idea that in the post-Christian France, in like post-revolution Christian France, he could find like some sort of enlightenment and higher level consciousness through total libertine, total,
Hmm.
because in his mind it was like returning to nature, or you could say like a fucked up Bronze Age mindset, even more fucked up than what it, but like a
Right.
really fucked up Bronze Age mindset sort of philosophy that was
Just giving
developed.
in to desire for whatever it is.
Yeah, like a
Yeah.
maximalist
Hmm.
desire based cult, which he was sort of fantasizing about, or like a new form of morality, because for him he hated the Christian form of morality, and even some aspects of revolution morality. For him, he wanted like a more pure nature based one, which was the thing there is, and this is where his fault was, it wasn't like, none of it was natural, because they still used social orders. They weren't actually, because and I was thinking about it actually afterwards, like if you were to have like a total like primitive return to primitive society, the people who were like, his characters wouldn't be the ones doing it, because physically they rely on their already garnered wealth and power and stature, so they're kind of like, they're sort of leeches off one society while wishing to you know to sort of live out fantasy, and they don't even they sort of live it out in secretive forms in their own properties as well. um it's not even like it reads like a manifesto, but then it isn't. They're kind, it's kind of like larping. They sort of
Right.
larp this new morality that they want to develop. um yeah, sorry, that's a bit of a sort of
Yeah.
ramble on.
I didn't mean to have us go down that avenue so far,
I
but
I enjoyed every moment of it.
oh
Don't
yeah,
be sorry, but and I'm sure the chat loved it as well.
this will
Didn't you,
get you a
chat?
lot of views. Yep.
Yeah, so we've got that. I say that, what, now YouTube, that's smart. Every time you mention like a person, so like under like under this once it finishes under this stream, it will be like Wikipedia, and it'll be like Mahdi Assad, Mussolini, Hitler, Stalin, Jesus Christ, and it'll be like,
Cheryl Tweedy, Paris Hilton.
Yeah,
yeah.
it'll start affecting your feed.
Just the idea that no one's watched the stream yet. Look to all the famous people. So, what were these people talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll get you some viewers.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that it'd be like a total like schizo stream or something like that. Um, so sorry, so Aubrey, Mercian was just Mercian, what was your topic was about the housing
Yeah,
market.
the inspiration, because I was watching. I think it was Dan's segment on the podcast of the Lotus Eaters, and he was talking about the generational unfairness. About basically how young people are screwed, and they were talking about the housing market, and it's something that is very much on my mind at the moment. I mean, there are problems with houses like altogether. Like I think at, at one stage they were talking about how politicians are like, well, we'll build loads of flats, and it's sort of like the consensus was, well, no one wants to live in a flat. People want to live at least in a semi-detached house, at least with a garden and things of that nature, if I can help it. 3 bedrooms at least.
at least that's a big
Well,
house.
I think a 3-bedroom house is just
I mean, I
a
guess mine is
house.
3 bedrooms. Yeah, so that's true.
I, I don't think it should be an aspiration to yearn for a 3-bedroom house.
No, it should be achievable for sure. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, and then there was a talk about. So here's the bit I wanted to hit on, because like there's talk about like how the boomers are going to die out soon, and maybe the market will start to, because he's starting to dip in places like London. The bubble is starting to burst in London, and my thinking
Well,
was when the boomers start to die out, who are going to get all these houses? Because with sort of inheritance tax and everything, I just wonder if it's not necessarily the generational sort of inheritance, but all the new
the
arrivals.
immigrants, that's what
Yeah,
I was just going to say. They're all coming in. And
yeah,
The
unless they
it,
close those gates.
the largest property owners, like actual like demographic group in London, is Indians.
yeah,
Uh-huh.
On
Yeah.
not like a majority, but on like a plurality. And then of course you have like your traditional like Arab, Russian oligarchs, and you have like companies as well, like and corporations owning properties.
Mm-hmm.
I actually, and this is something that IronDuke would sort of go, ballistic if I when we mention this, but Admiralty House, for example, also Admiralty's Arch, um, um, is, I believe it's owned now by some foreign conglomerate, which is like based in China. Oh, America. It's an American company, but like based in China, sort of thing, which is basically like a it was a national, it was a building owned by the state. Um, it's where for Aubrey, where you see like trooping of the colours when you have all the red coats and bearskin hats doing the march
Mm-hmm.
and all that.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
around that. It's around that area, and it's building that served for the military. Uh, it's ultimately a very important building in central London, and it's this was sold off by George Osborne, by the way, and one of the worst chancellors in living memory, absolute scumbag of the first order. And this is what's happened. I mean, if you want to talk about the how the state operates, this is where, and this is where reform, this is why I never had any hope of reform, is if you view this country, they all view this country as just a total economic zone to be sold off to the highest bidder, and then they'll use that as well. That's free market capitalism, and and quite frankly, I've never been a free market capitalist. I don't really believe in that, because I believe this. At the end of the day, this isn't. There's things that nobody has a right to sell. These are properties which were part of this are part of our nation. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it'd be
Right.
like selling off Arlington Cemetery or something like that for real estate. I mean, that's mad. That'd be mad, right? It'd be like
Mm-hmm.
selling off I don't know if like George Washington's home or something is still, if it's like, I imagine
Right,
it's
right.
yeah, if it was sold off to like some Chinese company. I mean, maybe it has been, I don't know, but you know
Who
it,
knows?
but it's something important. There's that there has to be like a dividing line on this, where you can have a society where you have trade and market access for people to conduct businesses internationally, but it doesn't mean we have a economic system where we rely on infinite numbers of people from overseas to fuel an economy which, quite frankly, has shows little in return, apart from flooding our country. I mean, the labour pool in this country is completely just done. Um, Wage depression because of this is what's, I think, has been dominating Britain for the last few decades now. Particularly when the when Eastern Europe largely joined the EU, and you had like the waves of Eastern European um, migration and workforce and everything. And this is the problem with this country, and I do fear that even people in Restore haven't really got with the program yet of when they say about the changings in this country, we actually need something. It's not just like well, change in tax policy. It has to be a whole different way of how we view this country. And I don't think this Britain should be a service-based economy anymore, style of country, because it hasn't worked. It's ruined our cities. It's turned our cities into slums, into these multi-ethnic slums where you have every weekend, you have like some foreign conflicts being grievances being played out, and through demonstrations or forms of violence. And
Mhm.
um you have like that, you have a whole generation of, as Mercian mentions, uh young people coming through of the British nationals who can't get onto the property ladder, can't get onto the top career ladder, who have universities which are basically um, are meaningless and pointless because they only service foreign students, because that's what the universities wants to aim for, because that's where the money is. Um,
Yeah.
it's bad, and this is the problem with and so when they say, well, yes, the country is broken, it isn't working, but you know saying, well, we're going to have like a different, we're gonna look at the economic proposal, we're just going to like stop we're going to start returning people. But I look at this more wide, like, well, how are they here in the first place? It's because we've allowed
Mhm.
big businesses and corporations to push for mass migration. And this is where I'm a bit different from some, because I actually say, we should actually be targeting these companies, these corporations, and even charitable based companies as well, for pushing this.
It's sort of like monopoly laws don't exist anymore. I mean, we should be promoting small businesses wherever we can.
Right.
Lots and lots of small businesses rather than. I mean, there's a place for big business, but
I mean,
do
you
you want?
you you live it, Mercian. I mean, you are small business.
Yeah,
And I don't know about you, AI, but yeah, you see the struggles, and that's what America was supposed to be like based on, is the small business, and they've made it so difficult for people to operate. And yeah, of course, COVID had a huge impact on everybody. Um, but even before that, and do you guys feel like you're getting that they're bringing them in for cheaper labor? Is that what they're doing, or what's
Yeah, I think it's very powerful companies. I mean, if you take the
Mhm.
healthcare sector in this country, one of the biggest sectors in this country is healthcare. So it's NHS, but also it's
Right?
nursing homes, it's care facilities, and everything. They entirely rely on foreign labour, and it's not just. I mean, it is from all over the world, and you have these schemes in the part. I mean, this is under the Tories, where you had, and this is where a lot of the Boris wave stuff comes in. You were having people from all corners of Africa and their families being invited in, and the standards. And I've seen a lot of these standards for them to come to arrive here. Barely literacy rate, from some. There, a lot of them, they would be have sponsors. They have like the sponsorship deal. It's it is a cotton industry, and
Okay.
when you have governments in this country and parties that will promise, well, we're going to reduce immigration and everything. I mean, they can't. They don't have control to do that. This has been set in law for a long time now, and um, it requires a total rework of the financial system and the way that this country financially operates and produces going forward. This is the task, and the problem is, it's very difficult to do, because any political party that says this, that would be saying what I'm saying, and what many
Hmm.
of us have been saying for some time, um, you would have the unions, which again are this, totally captured force. It used to be the unions used to be against, particularly like sort of a lot of the mining unions of the labor movement were against mass migration, because they their workers were were disprivileged because of this, and they would be disprivileged. Today, the unions are totally captured, and they're on a lot of them on the size of big business and in the care sector as well. They are very big proponents of this, and that's why. And of course, they are uh, uh, have strong presence in the Labour Party and many left-wing groups. So yeah, and the thing there is, Lenin. This comes down to it. Lenin was right. Lenin was right. Lenin was. I mean, Lenin is totally vindicated on this. He was right, and the thing there is probably where he. Maybe this is. I don't know if Lenin thought about this, but I think in his mind, this would all be done. I mean, this was all done under the right. This is all done under like normally right-wing conservative governments in Britain. And Lenin would predict this, but I think Lenin thought, well, surely the people, the communists, the Marxists, the socialists, would be smart enough to stand against this. Of course, they weren't, because the left are, a lot of them are just, total, easily manipulated morons, and they, are their biggest because, and this is how the system controls the left. The left get controlled with the propaganda of anti-racism from World War II, and the right get controlled through a lot of outrage clickbait stuff. That's sort of how the control goes. But Lenin was right, and
Mm-hmm.
I think like under Trump and Biden in America, you had like large waves of migration into the country, and it became like a whole political talking point. I think for the last the last election before, that, from my understanding, Aubrey, a lot of those would be filtered into the agricultural industry in America, as well as other sectors, and particularly in the South. A lot of those were, you had Republican Party donors down in the South who were very much in favor of forms of amnesty or, work permits for these people. And so when it came to the ICE, detaining and deporting, there were exceptions made. And this is the problem with the power of, and these weren't like your individual family farms. These are your big corporate conglomerate farms.
Mm-hmm.
This
Yeah.
this is the and this is the same in America, the same Britain. Effectively the you have to have state input now in particularly when you have globalized economies. I mean, strictly speaking, I think if a globalist would look at Britain, would look at a company in Britain, America, and they wouldn't even distinguish like we distinguish our separate nations. They don't distinguish. They just think, okay, output is like this, output is like this over there. There is a great chain connecting it all. And so national governments need to have the governments need to take back control need to take back control need to take back control from the multinationals.
I'm against big business anyway, but a bit of me does think that maybe stuff like heavy industry requires big business. What are your thoughts on that?
Sorry, what, repeat again, Mersin?
I'm thinking things like heavy industry requires big business, like things that are complicated to make. You think cars, think electronics, think these these sorts of things. Do these require big businesses, or could they be reduced down to the small business? I'm thinking no, but I mean Amazon is a big business. Do we need an Amazon? However, vicely, in this country, we have Jaguar Land Rover. That could be argued to be a big business. It certainly employs a lot of people in the West Midlands.
It's about the supply chain. So you have like so for car, and I mean this is the problem with Britain, and I will say, the worst thing that ever happened in some ways was allowing, I think, what was it, back in the 80s or 90s, letting China join the various trade, like the G7 and the various trade markets, because you opened up a nation of over 1 billion people who have the manufacturing capacity to out out maneuver any British industry or most European industry, and even compete, and pretty much outmaneuver American industry. The
Yeah,
problem is
and
yeah,
I
it's
was just
that.
I was just going to say about the manufacturing. It was never considered that much of a threat for someone like China to do the manufacturing, because they basically did poor quality, high output stuff. Where
Yeah.
generally in sort of the Western world, or the NATO alone world, we made very high quality, very desirable things. And if you want to stick to the car market, you think about like the German brands like VW and Audi and Mercedes and BMW, compared to JQ, for example.
I have a question for you guys. I was watching the news and they were showing video from Iran. And how come, like in all these, Middle Eastern countries and whatever, like the Mercedes, the BMW, everybody's driving them, and yet that's like the elite car in America. Those are the elites. What's the deal with that?
I'm not.
Do you know?
Well, I just think
Late model, I don't think.
Well,
Well, I
I
mean,
mean, you go on, William. It's your stream.
I was just going to say, maybe like in the Gulf countries, like depending on where the footage shot, if it's like in Dubai or something, I'm not surprised, because obviously it's the city is unique because it is kind
Wealthy.
of like a trading hub, and high, like a multi-millionaire billionaire sort of retreat sort of type city. So you have the police have a Lamborghini police cars. So I'm not
Right.
entirely surprised if you see footage from there of like
But no, this
a
was
military city
Iran.
around.
Yeah.
Um,
And I've seen it when I've traveled in countries that are like, I don't think in Belize, but other, I don't know, which I'm
well,
just
I mean,
thinking back.
it probably came. If I was to guess, it'd probably come through China. I
Okay.
mean, Russia has. I mean, we have trade. America still has the restrictions against Russia. China, I mean, you have like masses and masses, and America sells masses and masses of their vehicles to
Right.
China. Um, Ford
So
and so
somehow
so
they just get like carried through the stream.
yeah, it gets like
Yeah, I
sold
just think
on and
it's
sold on.
interesting.
Yeah,
Right,
sold on.
right.
Yeah,
I,
I mean,
I
I wonder if
wonder.
it's because there's so many in the market. It's flooded more in the market too over there.
yeah, I
Whereas
mean,
then
like,
over here it's more restricted, so it's more elite. I don't
yeah,
know.
it could be. I mean, I would say like the most flooded vehicle in the market by far is a Toyota pickup truck. That
Really?
vehicle is just everywhere. It's everywhere. And
Wow.
any African or Middle Eastern conflict or revolution or whatever, it's there. It's just there with a massive gun on the back of it.
That's funny with a massive gun on the back.
I wonder if look, because I kind of want to bring it back to the housing market, because like
Yeah.
you could argue that kind of the millennials and perhaps some Zoomers could afford a Mercedes or a BMW, but can't afford a house. And I think about the third world when they sort of get to these shores, they usually have an Apple iPhone on them, sort of like.
Yeah, but the thing
You
is,
know,
and that
oh
I was
sorry.
just gonna, I was just going to say, but is the Apple iPhone a luxury product now? Because, or has that been flooded? Is
Well,
that actually luxury? I mean,
I think
when
it
I
has been flooded,
yeah,
but
because when
maybe
I
what
was,
model?
but
I
the
mean,
thing is, the price of iPhones have gone up. It's sort of like, I mean, when I first had an iPhone, it was like what, maybe
£300.
£300.
Yeah.
And then the one I have now, which is a 16 Pro, that was close to
Yep.
£1,000.
Yeah, that's what I have too. And yeah, it's so expensive.
I mean,
I mean, that's like a laptop right there.
it wouldn't surprise me if NGOs give them phones. I mean, most from speaking from experience, you do some depending on where you get an iPhone from, you can get like you can like pay it off in installments and stuff like so. Even if you're on low income, it's like I mean, I remember when I got my current laptop here, I didn't want to pay like over £2,000 or something like that, in one go. So I had it like paid off in installments over a period of time. That now one could argue that as um is that a viable thing? Is that a viable thing that you can have if you and all that sort of stuff? I would say, on a technology front, possibly, but at the same time, you and this is where you come to like the boom and bust economy. That this is this is where you had the housing market with the subprime mortgages in the crash in, what was it, 2007, 2008?
Yeah.
2008.
Yeah, where you had these deals done where people effectively who couldn't afford properties, but were they were that you had the banks that would give them these mortgages, these subprime mortgages, which then would be sold on, and of course it created this immense as there's a good documentary on YouTube, but you can actually see of like how the knock-on effect that it creates, and how it weakens, because China operates as a single state entity. They're not a free market in the sense of internally and how they deal with external people. There is an element of protection in the sense of their intellectual properties. We don't have that. We don't have that, and we should. The reason why Trump, in some ways, I did like Trump in 2016, was 2016 Trump did talk about this. He was hot on this issue, and he was right to be at that time about the intellectual property of American goods, intellectual property, and also American manufacturing and goods needs to actually have it can't be reliant on total imports. And Britain and
True.
America and Europe is like that. Germany relies on imports of their gas electric grid from Russia. You know, um,
Yep, that's a big problem. Right, that we need to. I mean, we have the ability to become energy, independent, right? And we get in our own way. I don't know. You guys talked about um, wanting to see the nuclear program, right? Have a little bit more development. I
yeah,
mean, not weapons. I mean, energy.
You mean power? Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, well, famous in this
Yeah.
country about 2010, under the Cameron government, they decided not to pursue nuclear electricity because it would take 10 years to implement,
Okay.
and politicians don't think in 10 years.
yeah.
So
They
they put
they
windmills up, or those awful things.
yeah
Essentially, yes.
God, that are
yeah
killing birds and not working efficiently.
yeah because he had to win. Cameron had to win an election in 2015. Didn't really care about what happened in 2020 or anything like that. Um, and also, as Mitch mentioned in chat, this because he was coalition, it was Nick Clegg. It's the Liberal. I mean, the thing is the problem, and this is, I mean, talk about paid off. There are parties, particularly the Lib Dems, are just purely. I mean, they are purely someone else's lackey. And of course, Labour and they were all politicians and parties are someone else. Yeah, the Tories are in the pocket of the Zionist, particular Zionist foreign movements, but also the housing lobby, the construction lobby at large. Even big Indian businessmen, that sort
Yeah,
of stuff. They have that, and then Labour have their own network, and particularly the unions. Nick Clegg,
but that's not a bug. That's a feature. Even Restore has its interest groups. Although you could
yeah,
argue Restore has the interest groups are its interest groups. It's not at the moment. It's not external to the interest groups of native British people. But
well, I mean that's my topic. I was going to
Ye-
come on to a bit later, but yeah, this is where that there's that balancing act where, yeah, you're going to have, days of old you would have, if same in America, or okay, you have your Republican candidate. Okay, they'll get their farmers, they'll get their, the miners, they'll get the maybe the labor movement or this move. It didn't really matter because it's all American.
mhm.
So
Right.
yeah, you have like the internal machinations of, okay, say this person got elected, now I have to, because I had the miners and I had the steel industry or
Mhm.
something like that, I'm going to have to give them some reward back, so for loyalty. I don't have a problem with that. I mean, that's some
Right.
internal stuff, and that's just that goes back to, I mean, that goes back even before modern forms of you constitutional republicanism, democracy. That goes back to ancient Rome. Giving certain factions what they want. It's just how it is. But when you have foreign interests who go on, and this is where we come down to it, foreign interests have no, they do not care. They, in many ways, they want to see themselves succeed at your expense, at your expense.
Mhm.
no,
Yeah.
absolutely.
I said miners, Luke World. I said miners, not with, you know what I meant, you bugger.
Yeah. So do you, another question, do you guys think that with regard to the housing market, do you think that people are buying or corporations are buying a lot of these homes to use as like Airbnbs and Verbos and whatever
Well,
else?
well, well, in the Lotus Eater segment, there's, I mean, for the last 20 years, housing was considered a bit of an investment by
Right.
all sorts of people, corporations, anyone with disposable income who were looking to make a lot. There was a lot of programs about how to make money. I remember one program specifically was how to make £1 million with 6 properties. So you'd start off with a property at say £100,000 and trade up within 6 properties and then make £1 million. I forgot what the name of that
Mhm.
program was called, but there was a lot of TV shows in the 2000s where it was all about how to make money out of property.
I remember that too. Yeah. On the late night television, they'd have like the infomercials.
Mm. And
Yeah,
you'd also have like banks who were offering investments as well. I mean, there's one bank, Northern Rock in Britain, and when the crash hit, they went, they uh, they just went.
Are your
Um,
banks not guaranteed? I mean, like not insured like ours are?
I think something like £100,000
That's
you're
it?
insured for. Yeah, something like that.
Oh,
I
that's
don't know the exact figure.
scary.
It might be more than that, might be less than that, but it's something like £100,000 you're insured
Well,
against. Yeah,
that's kind of scary.
yeah,
it is.
that
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, because it's the amount of people's pensions and things. The problem, uh, the
If you
Bush
want to put
had.
raw, I don't know if raw biscuits is right, about 120,000 per person per banking group. So
Shit.
Yeah, government. I mean, what was it? I think NatWest Nationwide HSBC were bailed out. A lot of the big ones, because they had to be, in the sense the government had to make that decision anyway. But yeah, that with the Northern Rock investment and in people who had those investment, it was gone.
Oh my
Just
God.
gone overnight. There's nothing you
Can
can do
you
about it.
imagine
Yeah.
working all your life for years and years and years for this, and you've got it saved up for your kids and grandkids and your retirement, and it's gone. I can't imagine.
Yeah, it happened to
Yeah.
it happened.
Yeah.
It happened, and
So I was just having an epiphany about that show. I was talking about where you can make £1 million by trading up by 6 properties. I was like, sort of like, I wonder if I could take £1,000 and trade up cars till I get to 100 grand, buy property 100 grand, and then trade up to £1 million.
I don't think I don't think I don't think they would that I don't allow that to Mercian, but I don't think what would be the financial regulator or something like that would like put a stop to I mean I don't see a reason why you can't, but
I'm just thinking about like I mean I don't know what that show was called. It was two gay men who were property developers, and they had to get £1 million within 6 properties. I think that started with a property. It might have been under £100,000, but they did it. They basically started off with it like this. I don't know if it was a flat or a terraced house or something like that. £100,000 property, and they basically ended up buying like something like a London property. You can imagine the kind of property, and they managed to make £1 million out of that. And I'm just, what I'm thinking is it still possible in today's day and age to properties? Because I watch shows like there's a show called in the car where there's like weird dealers trading up, and the premise of that show is you have a dream car. So like, let's say for example,
Let's take the Subaru Impreza. How about
let's just say like
just randomly? Let's take that.
Mike Brewer was wanting to buy my Subaru Impreza WRX STI 2007 RB320
Blue with
model.
gold rims, by the way.
Yeah. That, and they're like 25 grand, and I've got I don't know, like a Nissan Micra worth £500. and Mike Brewer would be able to buy that Subaru Impreza by trading up within 5 or 6 cars. I'm just wondering, with a bit of knowledge of how everything works, could you still do it in this day and age? And should I do a YouTube channel devoted, can I make £1 million?
I think that would be kind of interesting.
What do you reckon, William Granville? Are you sold? You want to invest in this? The dragon. Here's a Dragon's Den pitch.
Does anyone have a Subaru Impreza that they can send to Mercian? Please let us know. Anyone, if you know someone, let us know if they want to donate.
Yeah, if I want to do it.
Yeah, I'm in. I mean, failing that, we
idea.
just become slumlords. To be honest, like we could be like some like Dickensian Mercian. We could become like some Dickensian slumlords. Like governing like this vast shanty towns.
Well, I just let's say I do this YouTube series, and let's say I've got a couple of other channels, but let's say I do it under the Mercian moniker, right? And I allocate £1,000. I buy a car for £1,000, right? And I've got to get to 100 grand within 6 or 7 cars by trading up. I.e., I take this £1,000 car, I maybe do it up a little bit to get its value, and I get a profit. Maybe I double the money for 2.5 grand. I then buy a car for 2.5 grand. I do it up, and maybe I can get a little bit more, so on and so forth. Then up to 100 grand. Then I look for a property for 100 grand. Is it possible in this day and age? I'm genuinely in love with this idea, and maybe I should look to find out. I need the money.
Not asking, you're asking the wrong person.
It's the money. You need the money and the risk.
You know, I don't know how it works over there, but I told Mercian that, you know, you can apply for grants to get help with housing, and I would imagine you guys have things like that over there as well. We have a lot of you just have to kind of be creative and go and like
Probably
Google search.
Just pose as a pikey Mercian, and you can just say, "Oh, I'm part of an underrepresented group, community group, or something."
Well, maybe I should back off.
You're a minority. Just claim it. Claim that you've just realized that you're of Pakistani, descent, and you didn't know that. Your parents held that back from you. And
I'm Mercian is one of those white Pakistanis that possibly descend of Alexander the Great's army.
Right.
Raw Biscuits is asking, can you buy a property for 100k? Yes, you still can buy a property for 100k if you know where to look. But if you what I'm thinking is property development. The real trick is not if I can find a property for 100k. Can I get enough profit out of it to buy a property worth a lot more than 100k? That's the trick.
And the Subaru Impreza.
Well, that too, yes.
Yeah. Gotta have that.
I mean,
look it up here.
I think the problems with the idea is knowing how to make the profit, because I think you could probably make. So let's say I bought a car for £1,000, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's knowing how to make that car valuable enough to
wait, £1,000?
£2,000.
Okay, that's going to be quite the project if it's only £1,000 for the car, right?
I mean, maybe I'm thinking too much in like 10, 20-year-old prices. I don't know how out of line I am, but I'm sure you can still buy a vehicle for £1,000.
Yeah, you can. You can.
The trick is can you buy a car for £1,000 that you can double the value of it at least?
I think you have to be a real car guy that can do all the, the upgrades, or not upgrades, but like, the upkeep and whatever.
I think you can buy like a car that just needs simple maintenance to get the value in.
Well, sometimes you can find somebody though that really had a car that they loved, that they took good care of. Like I had a Saab in 2006, and my ex was still driving it up until just recently when he crashed it, because he's a terrible driver. But I took such good care of that car, and it had like 35,000 miles like 10 years later. So, you can find people that and my car, the value still was the same. It's not like I could charge more for it.
I see what everyone is saying in chat, but it's more an experiment for me. It's sort of
Mercy, we may just become like wandering con men, You remember from Pinocchio?
Yeah, the used car salesman is not a great reputation to seek.
Yeah.
And yes, Saab parts were very difficult to get sometimes.
I think it's choosing. I think it's property choice and vehicle choice. I.e., it's getting the right vehicle that you can easily put some value back in by doing a service, for example, and taking all the wear and tear off of it quite easily. Because you're not going to buy a vehicle and do nothing to it and then double your money. It's just, that's not. You're going to have to do something to put the value back into it, and vice with the properties. So
I think cars don't hold their value like houses do, though. Cars lose their value quickly. The minute you drive it off the lot, right? You always hear
yeah,
that, and they do. But
but
houses can grow. I just looked up my house. It has doubled since I bought it in 2016. The price of the value has doubled. And
Um,
I literally have done nothing to it. That's just based on the market. And I've had some upgrades to my house. I've put in a fence and various different things, redone the cabinets in the kitchen, the bathrooms. So it'll I'm sure have a little bit of added value there too. But houses, property, and there's a reason that I think there's a market that people are doing this. So many people are flipping houses, right? There's got to be something that they're doing right. I would look at a bunch of YouTube videos and see what people are doing.
I mean, Lukey just says maybe this is why Iranians have nice cars. Referring back to your, I
Yeah.
actually think, and this is something like consumer. Without going like being like a whole econ channel at the moment, but we actually have to look at consumer behavior based on you know Westerners and those from the East. I've noticed that because particularly from the Anglo nations, I think we probably have a high turnover. Like if something becomes old or out of date, like oh I want the next iPhone or the next car or what have you. Um, I think particularly those in the East and from the Orient probably are willing to keep hold of and basically not become like they're consumers but not like mass consumers of like purchasing everything new when it's released sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And also they're not individuals, they actually have like a very very strong family tie. It's very
Mm-hmm.
you don't usually have you know the son or daughter sort of leaving home
Right.
but by themselves sort of thing, then living by themselves sort of thing. That's sort of like become a um quite a Western, particularly English
Yeah.
speaking sort of trend. And in this country, when you have foreign nationals moving particularly into family units, the reason why you have like the Indian corner shops and why and you'll have like every shitlib under the sun will say, well, this is why these businesses are successful, is actually because they operate, that you have like the patriarchal father or and on the matriarchal mother, and they will have like this, they'll have the children, the several children and grandchildren, and they will basically collectivize the family to work for the local, you know for the like in the local corner shop or something, and you don't have to
Mm-hmm.
worry about paying staff or things like that if you try to do it in the West. And in some ways it's you could say the problem also is not just in like the migration, but the reason why we have to why migration is mass migration is happening is because the family structure in the West is so I mean it's so inverted from
Mm-hmm.
what it traditionally has been and what it should be.
Yeah.
And
So
and
I'm.
you and it's and also, so they said, and because they have those family units where they're able to save a lot of money, and they can have they can then purchase other properties which they can then rent, or in some cases in London, subletting, which is where they will rent themselves and then sublet it on, which is illegal, but it's such a widespread thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's you can't it's councils can barely enforce investigations into that.
Right. Well, and you guys do have so many taxes over there too that are just. I mean, you guys are drowning in them.
was it on our stream where Harry worked out that the price per
Yeah.
liter in America is like 50p a liter over there.
Yeah. He was like, "What?"
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is the way you get around that, Aubrey, for those families is if you're earning less than I think if you're earning less than £1,000 £100 a month, you can avoid national insurance, paying national insurance and tax. No, so you avoid paying basic rate tax, but you pay national insurance, which is not that much.
And how much
So
was that if you make under what?
1,000, I believe.
Under
Maybe someone
$1,000 a month
£1,000, yeah, thousand
or
pound,
pounds a month?
yeah,
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 but that's hard to live on.
yeah, and then you have to, and then but the thing though is that's where you have like that this is the problem is, say you have like let's say you got a town called Trumpton, Trumpton or something like Trumpton Town, Trumpton Town, and they import 500 families from Kashmir, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right, and
Why,
from that,
why would they do this, William? This doesn't seem likely to me for some reason. Like, why would you do that?
because the local the local knickers factory wants to import people to sew and everything, and operate the machines on cheap, and there's a Tory government, and the Tories got backhanders, and so they've allowed it in. Okay, Mercian, it's not beyond plausibility.
I like how you literally talk
Mercian.
about yeah,
Mercian.
stupid Mercian. How could you not understand how this works? Come on,
yeah.
come on, Mercy. You know how
He's
this
the
works.
Keep up,
villain.
boy. Keep up. Yeah. And so in this hypothetical scenario, you have, like the local high street, and you have your butchers, you have your cinema, you have your bingo hall, you have maybe the old splashing of cafes, and maybe like one or two restaurants, several pubs, because of course this is Britain, so you have quite a few pubs, and then you have maybe like your local electronics shop and everything, like a bit of everything, and then you have maybe a couple of supermarkets as well. But what you have is you have a population um, who have moved in, and they're earning very little, but the entire family unit is mobilized to work, as I mentioned before, in their corner shops and everything. And over time, or they work for someone else, and they're able to build up money. But sometimes portion of their pay goes overseas to other family members. They send it over,
Right.
or they just hoard it because they want to save up for purchasing their own property, or starting their own curry house, everything, which I've seen happen in my area. And one of the problems they do is they don't actually invest their
Yeah.
money back into that local community. Now imagine that on a grand scale. And that's one of the things you have high streets dying. Now, of course, you have like the advent of the internet, of like Amazon and delivery, and so a lot of shops become obsolete because of that. And
Mm-hmm.
then you have, because of you have councillors who are idiots, and shouldn't even be in local government. Well, they'll just raise business rates as well, because that's just what to try and get revenue. But by doing that, they make the high streets less affordable. So then your high street doesn't have butchers and good and bingo halls and cinemas. They have empty buildings, which are then reused drug dens, and then you have charity shops and car and phone shops, and then like 10 Kurdish barbers, Turkish and Kurdish barbers,
Yeah.
and vape
Yep.
shops as well. Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the problems for us too, with bringing in all these immigrants, is that they don't pay back into the system. They don't invest. They don't, you know, yeah, they're just there. And look at, my God, the social services they're providing for them. It's unreal. I mean, have you ever, Mercian, have you ever had somebody offer you free healthcare, free food, free lodging ever by your own company, or not company, country?
Well, we get free healthcare in the NHS, but
Oh, that's right. I forgot. Okay, let's take that away then. Yeah,
yeah.
free food and free lodging. Just come on in. Or what? Yeah, I can't get over it. We had people. There was that hurricane that affected North Carolina so badly, and we had Biden. Well, he wasn't making any decisions, but we had Harris and whoever was behind the scenes, just giving all this money away and all these lodgings and food and healthcare to people that who knows where they even are. We don't even know. And I do believe they were eating our pets.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I suppose the health care isn't free. Someone has to pay for it, and as far as lodging, I mean, we have council houses.
Mercy, we pay for it in our
right.
taxes.
Guess
That's why
who
we have
pays for that health care?
Yeah, I mean, one of the biggest myths is, of course, Britain. We don't have. I mean, we pay for our healthcare, and usually the healthcare is shit. I go into whenever I go last time I went into a hospital when I broke my wrist, I and this is where you have your accident emergency style hospitals, but then you have like your minor injury hospitals. I went to a minor injury that wasn't too bad. Went to like the follow-up appointment at a A&E style,
like an urgent care instead of the emergency
urgent
room.
Care, yeah,
right.
like an urgent care, you could say. And the problem is you have like a board there saying be patient. We have like people from like 300 countries, different nationalities and languages there, barely can speak English. I mean, the entire like waiting, the waiting room was full of foreign nationals. Bearing in mind where I live, is not that many in comparison to most of the country. Like, we're meant to be like one of the more homogenous areas of Britain, and even then, yeah. You can say, well, what's wrong with the country? I mean, this is it. It you know this is what I was using the example of the shops and everything is. This is sort of like this is the harsh, like, terrible legacy of it, whether she wanted or not, of Thatcherite economics, because everything, the whole society is mobilized into one economic zone. And for many Tories and Thatcherite types, and even, dare I say, some people, Mercy, that we knew and that we know, they would argue that there's nothing wrong with that. They in their mind, well, it's just all the free market good and everything, apart from obviously the healthcare thing, which a lot of people have some of our friends and people that we've known in the past, usually I have argued for it to be abolished and everything. I don't know. I mean, I think the NHS probably could work, but the problem is, number one, it's too big and it's not efficient, and it shouldn't be open to foreign nationals, really.
Listen, as the daughter of a CEO of a healthcare company, I know this, that like when Obamacare came into play, it couldn't go the way he promised, so it didn't. But people are paying more than they thought they would. But it's not sustainable because healthcare costs are so high now. They're not like they.
How much of that though is just because we've got like a massive boomer generation who are all old, and we've got like a strict tax, and it's like millennials and Zoomers were much smaller compared to them.
So they're going to put a huge strain on our healthcare system. They're doing that now, or it's starting to now. And the thing that I don't think like Democrats understand, and I'm sure the liberals in your country too, that are the ones that are in charge even, they don't understand that you cannot just, you can offer people free things, but somebody pays for it. So like the people that they were allowing to come into like Nordstrom and just like break the glass cases and just grab all kinds of Gucci watches and whatever, and just scoop them up, and they're running out, not prosecuting them, right? Well,
yeah.
Who pays for that? And they were told not to call the cops, just let them take it.
Yeah,
we pay for it. Prices go up. The companies aren't going to take that loss.
the thing is, in our country, like we got a tradition because I mean, it's like, so for example, you have that phrase "scot-free," which people think it means to be free from like marauding Scots, like for border waivers. Actually, no, Scot was referred to like this because back in the Danelaw times, you had a special tax called the Scot, which was based on social welfare. And that was like back in that was before Norman Conquest kind of time when you had like sort of proto social welfare kind of thing. Then you got also history as well with Elizabeth and Poor Law from 1601, and then I suppose where it takes an insidious turn in our country's history is 1911. You have the People's Budget, where David Lloyd George and I think Winston Churchill was part of the Liberal Party at that point. Yeah, they railroaded in this budget, which basically it pays for stuff like pensions, but they start bringing in stuff like inheritance tax. So it's not so like people think a lot of the taxation stuff that we have to deal with it comes from the Labour Party from like Clement Attlee onward. Actually, no, goes back to the days of the Liberal Party. So whereas America, I just say that's from what little I know about America, it seems a very recent thing where you have like this idea of it's more like LBJ, isn't it, with his Great Society in the 1960s, where you start having this whole thing about extracting taxes from actual productive people to pay mainly for the blacks, but also just welfare dependents.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, I just I don't know when are people going to get tired of it. When I mean, like, listen, my dad, more than 50% of his income went to taxes. I'm sorry, like.
Are you a bit distant away from your microphone because you're going quiet for us? I think
he didn't come from money. He worked really hard to make his way up, and he was very successful. But he worked for that, and that's money then that like could have helped me and my mom and whatever. But 50%, can you imagine?
Yeah, so I mean, I remember Dan off Lotus Seeds, he was saying this point about how certain countries have different tolerance of tax rates. And now in Denmark, for example, I was talking to a Danish family one time on holiday, and this was like years ago, where so in Denmark you pay something like 56% tax, but at least the public services you get are good value for money. Whereas in this country, I don't know what it's like in America because I imagine different states have different tax rates. Somewhere like Missouri has a different tax rate from
right.
say, Texas, for example. I know. So yeah, Denmark, because we have 56% of the people are satisfied with it because you get good value for money, and Denmark has they've not been as open borders as we are, so you haven't had that problem there. Whereas you have in this country where. Yeah, whereas
we have some states now that don't have income tax, like Tennessee, I think Florida. Yeah, Florida, I know that. And those states, the taxes though have gone up a little bit for product tax, right? Because again, you say, hey, here's this great deal. Well, it's got to be compensated somewhere.
Yeah, it's like I remember one time like people were talking about in Hungary about they're getting rid of income tax for like for example women who have 4 children and so on. The thing with that is Hungary has the highest VAT rate on this side of the Atlantic. Like they've got
what is VAT?
Value added tax.
Value added tax.
Oh, okay, got it.
So,
yeah, it's like a sales tax, like, but
yeah.
So
if
that
you come over here,
causes people to like women to want to. I mean, doesn't that cause the problem we've got here in our kind of slum areas where you've got women having kids to get the money, and that money does not go to helping the kids; it goes to.
The thing about countries like Hungary. So the thing about Hungary, I'm going to go on a slight bit of a history lesson about. So when Hungary got rid of communism. They had massive loads of debt, and even the Socialist Party they had in the 1990s and mid 2000s. They had to embark on austerity programs, which you can't imagine that did wonders for their program, like because a lot of them are holdovers from communism. And the thing is, on one hand, like the government kind of has to balance welfareism, and Orban was kind of bad for that. He kept upping the welfare bill, and it screwed over the economy, among other things. Like he opened up the borders a bit, not as much as over here, but still, it's Orban kind of betrayed his voter base by letting in quite a few Deliveroo kind of migrants. So that's like, even like with the tax cuts, it was still a matter of Orban was doing stuff under the radar that's screwing over people, namely like upping the welfare bill, and you also got to factor like Orban. The thing is, his vote is entirely just pensioners and boomers. So yeah, that's why like Hungarians have similar problems to what we've got, for example, basically. And it's like yeah, I just, this is where I get the black pill, is that I just don't think this side of things, I don't think you can solve it in a democracy. Because I remember when Elon Musk was saying about the cost cutting measures he was doing back when he was in Trump's government, and you had people on Twitter just saying you can't do this cost cutting kind of measure in a democracy because people just don't like, you can't have a social welfare state and a democracy, and we find it the hard way.
Yeah.
Right. That's the truth of it right there. And by the way, for Bernsey, yeah, the Democrats are the left wing, they're the liberals that are crazy. And they're just getting so much crazier. They're electing these people that are so far right. So far left. It's I don't even know. I don't recognize this Democrat Party at all anymore. And okay, Royal Biscuits is asking, aren't those in America starting now? I'm not sure what he's talking about. There's been a lot of bringing warehouses at the moment. I'm not sure what Royal Biscuits, you're going to have to ask that. Make some more comments here because I don't understand what your question is. But sorry, guys.
Yeah, I don't understand what that's referring to either.
Maybe.
Oh yeah, how long it's going to take before people get fed up? I know. Donald Trump is a Republican. Bernsey, yep. Just for the record, he's, yep. Yeah, I don't really know about that story in California.
Yeah, the warehouse, California.
California, right. I don't really pay too much attention to because they're just all crazy over there. So it's their governor is kind of the story now. The guy running for governor that now has to.
Yeah, I will say
walk away with his tail between his legs.
I will say what William Grenville was saying a bit earlier about Thatcher, like same can be said of Reagan. Like Reagan was the main reason why California went blue. So with the illegal immigrant amnesty he did back when he was governor or president. So yeah.
I mean, the thing is, California can be like this sort of tech powerhouse, but it doesn't need to have like it doesn't need to have like the high level social problems like this is the thing. It's like, it's kind of this weird thing in society where either you have like this strong like law and order, like, or you have like a law and order sort of thing, but then just abject poverty, and sort of mediocre sort of like towns where you don't have much in the way of like wealth, and then you have like these super like techie wealthy big cities, but then it's like you got like gangs, and you got like you got your like drugs and junkies, and it's I do have to. This is my. If I was ever like at Davos, I would just ask like the question like, what is it because it's like anarcho tyranny, like what Sam Francis said, like you just want to have out of control crime to like scare the population? Because if it's that, I can understand that. Like I could understand it. I could understand why they would want that, but at the same time, it's kind of like it does create a sort of problem because you want to have a powerhouse. You don't like shit on your doorstep, if that makes sense. Like you can't have like Apple, Google, Microsoft, and then suddenly outside it someone shooting up heroin and fighting someone in the street sort of thing. You can't have that you because that does create like more. It creates like this, and this is what I think it's seen with California. Like and a lot of like liberals will say, well, it's per capita of wealth generated, it's like still one of the way, and yeah, it is, but at the same time, like I saw this week this meme going around of I think it was in California, some guy who came up to this doorbell cam who was quite clearly mentally unwell and thought he was some character from
Oh, is
a
that the
comic
black
book.
guy that's so freaky?
He was a white guy with glasses, and
Oh,
he claimed to be he was wearing like a trench coat, and he's like it's some like comic book, not comic book, but some like uh demon hunter sort of story, and he claimed to be like the main character, and he was trying to look for this girl in well, not white, not white. I don't know his ethnic origin, let's say, but regardless, he looked like the Nothing Ever Happens meme guy, with the glasses and stuff.
yeah.
Um, and he went absolutely ballistic, and he actually broke into the house, and the
Oh my
homeowner managed
God.
to. The homeowner's pregnant wife managed to get into the garage, and he was driving
Oh,
to work. He apparently returned back home, because I was looking at the story because I just saw it came up, and you know, and the problem is, and the same in this country. Like, you go into any town centre, you will see somebody who quite clearly should be in an asylum, and we've sort of, and this is something where I've gone my anti-Quakerism now, because I haven't had an anti-Quaker around. The way that we treat crime and healthcare is, it's with healthcare it's masking the problem, never treating it, and with crime it's about um, treating people for their criminality, not punishing it. It is totally an
right.
inverse of what it
Amen.
should be.
Amen to
Um,
that. Exactly.
and it's a cross party. I mean, it probably exists in the Republican Party and the the Democrat Party, both, that sort of mentality. But and you'll have like these fancy psychologists. I mean, I've seen, like, in the police force in this country, you have psychologists with them. That shit needs to stop. I don't care what the reason is. You have to treat
Right.
crime as
Right.
evil. You have to punish evil, because that's ultimately what it comes down to.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you have like these horde of narcissistic, drugged up schizo zombies. And I mean, California, I
Right.
would say that is a classic example of where you have this guy who went too far and could have just murdered a child and a pregnant woman.
Oh,
Like,
Yeah.
absolutely. That's terrifying. And I think the psychology, I kind of defend it a little bit, because I think that it helps, from a profiling standpoint. I think it helps for us to learn what type of people commit what crimes. And that is helpful. I know I pay very close attention to that, because I wanted to be a prosecutor. It interests me. I think that that's something that is helpful. I don't think that it can be used as, and I know a lot of good prosecutors will say this, that we're not using this as the excuse, or I mean, I'm sorry, defense attorneys will say we're not using this as the excuse, but we're using it as a mitigating factor. And I, as a prosecutor, I would throw out half of the mitigating factors at least, but they get so creative with those. But
Yeah.
you know, there are people that have true mental illness that you have to punish them a little bit differently, for sure. Because
Well,
the problem in our prison system too is that we punish, and we don't really rehabilitate. Um,
no,
a lot of
I
people
mean,
will. I'm not sure how you really rehabilitate.
yeah.
well, I mean,
It's
Peter Hitchens regularly talks about how the punishment role is prisoners attacking other prisoners. That's his. That's one thing he's been frequently said, that how it used to be, people who live outside the system would go into prison, and they're meant to have like this regimented sort of. You prisons would have like this regimented sort of lifestyle, and now prisons are kind of like what prisons were the Latin American countries, where the prison guards would sort of leave it alone inside the cell blocks, and it would all be regulated. You'd have, like, the prisoners will have their own hierarchy, and that's someone just put on there. That's why how you have like certain foreign gangs, like when you have some prisons which house Islamist extreme, like I think Wormwood Scrubs is one example where you have like a cell block where you have people from like prescribed Islamic organizations. Well, they end up just because they're organized already, they'll take over it, and then you have like various like Yardi gangs of Jamaican, and this is the problem that you have. And in America, of course, you have like your Aryan Nation, your Bloods and your Crips, and
Bloods
your
and
various
Crips, yeah, the Latin
Hispan
Kings. Oh yeah.
Latin Kings in prison, because that's and that that wasn't that's relatively speaking a modern thing. Before that, it was
oh yeah, people had to
it,
work.
yeah, you had to, and that that in itself that in itself
Oh
is
yeah, if we got back to that, that would actually be a deterrent, which is an amazing concept, isn't it? To deter crime instead of have to just punish it. You were talking earlier about the symptoms rather than the problem, right? With healthcare, same thing with this. I think people are so short-minded, and I think that politicians are so short-minded because they have to go on what their record is, right? What they in recent time, and so
yeah, it's like you got Kamala Harris, who when Tulsi Gabbard tore a new one, where it was something like Kamala Harris arrested people and put people for indentured labor for smoking smoking weed. Well, then it was a matter of like you have herself, like Kamala Harris in her youth, actually doing weed, and it's so it's like.
But Kamala actually was terrible about not prosecuting her for crimes. She has the worst record of the prosecutors in that area. In I think it was the Orange County area. She was a terrible prosecutor.
Yeah, I know some people in chat are saying some people born back. I mean, I know there was because I had to study this in psychology a long while back. There's a guy called Cesare Lombroso who said that certain skull shapes you can predict for certain skull shapes can predict for criminality, and it's like and it's like the guy himself wanted rehabilitation kind of prisons, but like it was just a matter of like he famously said that certain skull shapes, like when you look at someone and you think that someone looks dodgy, like that's basically your instinct just telling you don't trust that person because their skull is shaped a certain way and there's a reason you don't trust them.
Right. And as a woman, we're told now that you can't like, okay, I'm walking down the street and I see 3 black kids, that are like 19, 20, whatever, and I'm by myself, it's nighttime. I'm nervous. That's making me nervous, more nervous than it would be, to be honest, if there were 3 white guys. And I, that's who I am. And so and that's just looking at the crime statistics. You are much more, you guys know the stats, but we're told now that you cannot do that. That's horrible. That is profiling. That is blah, 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 blah. And so even though I'm like on the farther right, I still get an initial, oh no, don't do that. Like, because it's so ingrained in us. It's so like beaten into us. But you have to pay attention to those things that you feel, those instincts that they've been honed over millions of years, right?
But this, Aubrey, your mental psyche is fighting over CIA MK Ultra programming. It's like because your brain is saying, no, Aubrey, remember Fresh Prince.
Right.
You love Uncle Phil. He's just like Will Smith. Right. And your brain is like, you got the more like natural side saying, Aubrey, don't listen to the lies of the MK Ultra drug.
Right.
It's not safe. And this is actually quite interesting because I do wonder, like there is, there is like that film They Live, where you have someone who does like break the programming in real time. I think if push came to shove, there are a certain percentage of the population who probably have no natural instincts left. I think there's
Right.
maybe like 20% of
That's
the
interesting.
population that
Is
have
it something?
no natural instincts.
Yeah, is that because I remember seeing like because when people were saying about Keir Starmer not having an internal monologue in his head, apparently like 50% of the population don't have that, which that's pretty much that's pretty bad.
What is it you said?
Something like 50% of people don't have that internal monologue in their heads.
Oh, wow! Really?
Yeah, it's like 50% of the population in this country will go for like a walk, like on a summer's evening or something, and actually just think of nothing. Just won't actually think.
Oh my god!
Which is quite scary, actually. I mean,
I can't even imagine that.
And this is why I actually am like thinking, oh God, I mean, number one, we do need to get rid of like people shouldn't be able to vote. I mean, to be absolutely honest, I think most people in this country shouldn't be able to vote anyway. But yeah, after when you look at that and everything, it explains quite a lot. It also explains how people can be easily swayed,
Yeah.
and manipulated. I mean, that is like it's not that hard, unfortunately.
No, it's not. No.
And because people aren't programmed that way, and yeah, it's a shame. It's a shame.
It really is. I wonder if that has to do with the people being so reliant now on their phones. If that has, I mean, listen, I'm older than you guys. Well, Mercy and you're close, but when I was a kid, we played. We had to use our imagination. And I mean, like the best thing ever was like a refrigerator box. If your parents had just gotten a refrigerator, right? You could make a fort out of it. Like that was the best thing. And that we were told like go outside and play, and we did.
Yeah,
I know a guy who his kids are just they hover around him and they're just playing on their electronics, and he's like, "Go outside and play."
Yeah, it's like because like at the moment, I'm looking up American Civil War, and so you see these guys who, for example, I'm reading a couple of books by people like these are like rank and file guys. These aren't rich people. Like they might write a book about what they experienced in the Civil War, and they'll write in such a way that I don't think anyone of my generation certainly is capable of. Like they're writing in like a very eloquent way. And these are people who are writing about this. They never went to school. Like they never went to a formal education, but they just know what words to use because perhaps they just learned off reading the newspaper. I mean, learned off reading sort of what we would call because it's like I remember one time reading that it wasn't the state schools that allowed people to be illiterate, go to literacy. It was more the penny dreadfuls that were selling for a shilling back in the 1870s onward.
And yet their English sounded better than a lot of the people that are speaking it in our countries now. So
the average English peasant during Chaucer's time probably sound like Chaucer, to be honest. I mean that's the thing. I mean, and collectively, it's like the society has become incredibly thicker and denser, and
there's no resilience.
Yeah, and completely disconnected, from really from anything really, any sort of knowledge. And I've talked about this before. There is a problem on the right, particularly on some aspects of the right when it comes to knowledge and stuff and quick, easy access. At one part I do hate I hate modern technology, and then I sort of love it. I have this sort of bizarre hate-love relationship with it. I hate it and I love it. I love to hate it, that sort of stuff.
Right.
And it's kind of like this. I mean, I know a lot of young people have TikTok, for example. And I don't have it, but from my understanding, it is like it's kind of like this. It sucks any sort of vigor or intelligence from you. It just sucks it out of you. And then you have like the Mitch. I think Mitch, you do a bit of doom scrolling every now and then. It's kind of like it sort of catches your attention. It's actually close to demonic. When you read demonic possessions, like from like antiquity or the medieval period, is actually very similar to that description of demonic possessions.
Mercian, have I not been saying that? I've been saying that for a while, that I feel like there is an element of, demonic. If you're a Christian, you can see it. I'm a Christian. I believe that angels and demons are fighting on a different plane all around us. And I think that that's the only reason I can come up with. I laugh, but it's not funny. That's the only reason I can come up with, that people are so blind to just the truth of the matter with things. In the 70s, Republicans and Democrats, they weren't that different, right? And they worked across the board, across the aisle. I mean, a lot. But now it's so divergent. I mean, these people, it's insane. It's insanity.
Well, I mean, it depends. I mean, it's like, for example, I know in the 19th century, it was a bit like there was a lot less difference, whereas it's really from the 1960s onwards, isn't it? With LBJ versus like Barry Goldwater. It's from really that point onward where you get the massive divergence, because you have the Republicans who they break into the South and may get into the more state rights conservative kind of thing. Like they get in more, because it's like I suppose you can detail a lot of American history simply as the sort of eternal quarrel between what Hamilton wanted versus what Jefferson wanted.
Yeah, that's true.
It's like, in a way, it's kind of, so for example, I know like the Democrats, one thing they want to do when they get back in is they want to get rid of the Electoral College, which I'm not the biggest fan of Jefferson, but he was very far-sighted with bringing that in, because it prevents the cities like New York and Los Angeles from just dominating against.
Well, the problem is, though, is that California didn't exist. And so, there was no thought, I don't think, of something that huge.
It was probably the South. It was probably there was like you didn't want like certain like states particularly in like the sort of bigger populated states in like Virginia or something actually becoming too dominant.
Right. But I don't think he ever could have imagined a state that was like California. And so, unfortunately, the elections start, and it's like so disheartening, because you're down how many electoral votes right off the bat. I mean, it's almost like an impossible reach for the Republicans to climb up that hill. And yet, sometimes they do. But it's so the Republican or the Democrats, it's like playing golf with a really good handicap.
Yeah, it's like because I remember JD Vance was posting about this like a couple of years back, where he said, because he said it on Joe Rogan's show, that if you were to deport X amount of illegals from California and Texas, I think it's just from California alone. Sorry, Texas and other red states would actually get more electoral points, because basically so you take Ohio, for example, as a swing state, they're more likely to go Republican, but more that Trump, for example, goes into, let's say, deporting illegals. So if Trump were to fully enact that, just deport tens of millions of illegals, especially in California, the electoral points that California has, but because that's the thing, is electoral points work by just sheer population, and that includes illegals pretty much as well, which is stupid. But anyway, so you just have to so basically, is you demographically gerrymandering the election. Like, that's what the Democrats are doing. They're demographically gerrymandering for just flooding California, especially with so many illegals, that it's tilting the ball in their favor.
You guys have that problem?
We have first past the post, so it's quite a bit different. Where it's like, because in your system you vote for the president, in our system we vote for a party, and it's like you have 650 constituencies, so you have like 650 simultaneous local elections all happening, and whoever wins the most from that forms the next government. Of course, you have to have a permission of the sovereign, or the king or queen. And
also, the king does actually, or the king or queen does actually play a role still politically.
Yeah, but the last time the royal family exercised any sort of veto on legislation was going back to Queen Anne, and that was over 300 years.
Okay, so it's
I think didn't Victoria, like you had the the what was it called? Maybe Aaron would know. It's the it was over. It was called the what was it called? The Chambermaid Affair or something like that. It was over when you had Peel was brought into government, and it was over the wives of Conservative politicians being in the Royal Court, and there was some back and forth with Queen Victoria at the time.
Yeah,
I can't recall the exact details. I do remember that was like somewhat of a constitutional sort of like gridlock with Parliament there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So like that's when you come into loggerhead. Yes, Victoria refused to dismiss the Whig appointees from when Peel became Prime Minister. That's what any requested. That was it. Yeah, I remember it now. Yeah, and that caused a sort of a loggerhead there.
You guys, I don't mean to kind of change the subject at all, but I'm gonna kind of ask if we can, because I have to leave. I've got a dinner party to go to. But would it be okay if I snuck my topic in real quick?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead. Was it Iran?
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
There's a lot to talk about, isn't there?
We spent too much on we sort of drifted off into the conversation.
Well, right. It was interesting though. I enjoyed it.
And it was good.
Yeah, good, and a different one than would normally be on Splendid Isolation too. So that's enjoyable. But I just wanted to bring up Iran. I was really hoping Therion would be on here, but he's not. He's my nemesis, but I love him.
Oh no.
I love him though. I mean, we have good debates, and I always hope that he doesn't hate me afterwards. And he doesn't. But we get into it a little bit. But I gotta say, what do you guys think about the stock market? Is that phenomenal, guys? Nobody agrees.
I'm afraid, Aubrey, you have me at a lot of a disadvantage. I haven't been tracking anything to do with Iran or the stock market, so I don't have a lot to say on this.
The stock market is, as of last night, they were 1,000 points behind hitting 5,000, which has only been hit twice. I think this would have been the second time, I believe. The stock market prices have gone up so high. And gas prices have gone way down, at least here. I don't know about for you guys. Have they gone down for you guys?
No, it's going up.
Quite the opposite.
The fuel tankers that set off from the Persian Gulf at the start of the conflict have only just reached us here and Europe. So what you have is just by pure logistic reasons, there is already it's going to be catching up. It's still going to be catching up, and
right.
Well,
so here's the deal. In a nutshell, Iran has agreed, quote unquote, right, to a ceasefire and not a ceasefire, to a deal. That they will never close the strait again. They will turn over all of their nuclear, work that they were working on, and that they will not block the strait ever again. So, did I say that twice? I don't think I did. But anyway, so they made that promise, right? And then, of course, they started to back out because now they're controlling the strait again. So, that's why our blockade didn't leave. And so if they want to continue to have our blockade there to starve them out of all of their money and transport, then that's great. Good for them. Let's do it. But I got to say, I'm proud of Trump and I'm proud of my military. And man, Therium would have a fit if he heard me say that. But it's true.
Okay.
Everybody who was like anti this whole thing and anti-Trump, I think it's going to be a good thing for everybody that they don't have a nuclear weapon. I mean, I know you guys were saying like, well, what would they do? They're not going to do anything with it. Well, we don't know that. And let's just not even give them a chance.
North Korea's got nukes. I mean, I haven't done anything. I've
Right.
since 1953.
Right. But you know what? There's even less stability in Iran. And they're funding all of these terror groups. I mean, they are not our friends. They're funding all these groups that are killing Americans, killing you guys over in Afghanistan as well.
I don't know, but because the Taliban are Sunni, so they're not. The Iranians are Shia.
Not the Taliban. Why can I not think of the Hezbollah?
Oh,
Right?
that's
Taliban. The Taliban are Pakistani. So
yeah, but they're giving money to all kinds of other people too. So sorry.
Yeah. Well, the thing about the Taliban as well, like, for that matter, like, they were helped by the Pakistani secret intelligence. So if anything, I'd have more problem with Pakistan having nukes because they've shown themselves not to be trustworthy. But
don't they have nukes, don't they, Pakistan?
Yeah, unfortunately, yeah.
Yeah.
But the question I want to know is why is it when we went into Helmand that the Taliban had US Stinger missiles? And what happened there? Well, I know what happened there, but
yeah.
Charlie Wilson, what happened there?
Really quickly too, to Royal Biscuits. Yes, you're right. The CIA did fund a lot of those groups. Not a good thing. And I know you Brits don't care. I just had to mention it. Royal Biscuits, you're my friend, I thought. So just a quick mention.
Okay.
And what was the other thing? There was another question. Oh, they have a rail link to China and America cannot stop Russian or Chinese shipping. Not true.
Well, but the Caspian Sea, which the Russians have built up ports on the Caspian Sea, which is linked to the Volga River. So I think if the Russians want to apply it, that they can supply Iran, and I think it'd be very. And the Americans don't really have much. Because one thing worth noting is that after 9/11, Putin helped the Americans invade Afghanistan by giving them access to former Soviet bases in like places like Uzbekistan. But nowadays, that's not the case anymore. So if you were to try and interdict the shipping and contacts between China, Russia, and Iran, it's a lot trickier. And that's why I think it was Keenan, George Keenan, who, of course, his long telegram was seen as the telegram at the start of the Cold War. He said that the worst nightmare for American geopolitical planners would be Russia, China, and Iran in a sort of tripartite axis dominating Eurasia.
That'd be really bad.
Yeah,
really bad. But you guys, if they're what we're hearing is true, and they have as much of the enriched plutonium and what's the other one, uranium, then they were close to having a nuke that could have actually been a real acting. Actually, I think 6. I think that was enough for like 6. They thought. You don't want that.
Well, the thing about Iran is like the Ayatollah that just got killed not too long ago. Like he issued a fatwa back in like 2003, 2004, against nuclear weapons. And like say what I do agree with Bida Britannia when he said that Obama's nuclear deal was probably one of the better things. I think it's the only good thing I can think of about Obama. But I think that's the only one good thing I can think of.
Yeah,
actually did any good on. Because
it's a shame Bede's not here because this is something that Bede can actually speak to.
I would take him down right now. Let me say,
I'm
kidding, you guys. He's a very, very intelligent man. And I don't want to bore you guys. You guys do have bigger issues over in Britain, but this does affect you guys too because you guys are getting invaded by by these militant Islamists they have one goal, you guys. It's to overtake us in the West. It's your country, it's my country.
I will say the Shia Muslims of Iran, like they're not as insane as the Sunnis we're getting over, because the vast majority of the Muslims we're getting over here are Sunni.
Well, I would agree with that about the Iranian people, but I would not agree with that about the Iranian.
Like you see these interviews
with,
with Iranian government officials, they seem quite like. I mean, a lot of them are just philosopher warrior types.
Yeah,
like they're quite well learned.
The trouble, I was going to say, with Mitch's point there, the trouble with Shia Islam is it is somewhat, particularly 12th Shia Islam, which is what the you've had various like branches within Shia Islam, 12th Shia Islam, which is the that of the predominant faith within Iran, obviously parts of Iraq and Azerbaijan. It is somewhat esoteric. There's aspects of which are esoteric, but also within Shia Islam. But they also don't, in its more traditional sense, the mullahs don't tend to accept traditionally a form of nationhood. They don't actually agree in forms of nationhoods or anything like that. That's how far removed it can be. And one of the problems during the revolution was, particularly among the clerics, was, well, the sort of fitting that reality where, well, we have to accept the reality that there is nations and there is like statehoods, nationhoods, and all that. And so that's where you have like this theocratic system where it's like we're like the Stuarts, we're they couldn't operate fully in their truest form, but they sort of rationalized it by, well, we're the clerics and we're the ones that get to decide the interpretation of our creed. There was actually I think it was a BBC reporter who was on a flight with the Ayatollah when they was returning from the revolution, when the Shire had gone, and he was returning back to Iran, and one of the clerics asked Ayatollah Khomeini, but they were flying over Persepolis in the ancient city, and they said, like, on a sort of Islamic thing, what do we do with that, these pre-Islamic sites? And the Ayatollah actually said, well, we preserve it because that is part of our the great sort of like our heritage and that sort of strain of something. Because one thing that we don't really talk about in Iran is there is like a strong element of nationalism within the revolution and within the Islamic the mullah sort of Islamic movement. It wasn't totally theocratic. There also was this sort of harkening back to antiquity in the ancient past, and they did play on the nationalistic sentiment quite a bit.
I don't remember.
I need to head out, guys. So thank you so much, though, for letting me come on. And this was really a fun conversation to have. And I adore all of you guys in Britain. Not everybody, but you guys, I do adore. So
thank you, Aubrey. Thank you, Aubrey, for coming on much. Such short notice. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. It was fun. Bye, guys.
Bye. See you.
Bye. Yeah, I'm really sorry about. I really don't know enough about Iran. All I know is we're going to be screwed vis-a-vis the petrol prices. So
yeah, it's.
I mean, not to completely counter what Aubrey said, but a lot of those talking points and narratives, we all know it. Okay, the Britain's been invaded by Islamic countries and by Islamic superpowers and everything. And there are a lot of people in this country that will use this as the rallying cry, and I get it. I understand that sentiment. But I actually thought of doing a video on this and then this would be probably quite controversial for some, and I actually like sort of look at, is Islam a threat to Britain in it through like yeah, and because a lot of like the counter jihad claims is that Islam is this existential threat, and when I look at history, and I don't know if Mitch would agree with me on this, Islam's only a threat to European civilization when you have like this great mass horde, whether it be the Ottomans or some Arabic caliphate, trying to conquer. And then when they do conquer, there's no guarantee that the population they conquer, through this existential army, external army, that the population, normally like Christian or something, would convert, because of course the Serbs, the Greeks, in the Hellenic Greeks, Bulgarians, by and large didn't convert. I mean, you had a few, maybe like in Macedonia, of course the Bosnians, Albanians, but by and large, a lot of the Balkans remained quite devout into their, and they had those in some cases extreme levels of persecution.
Yeah, I know. Because I was reading a bit about the Chechens, for example, where like their paganism endured for a long time because with Islam, I believe it's a matter of it spreads more in the rural areas, so it takes a long time. But when a population, for argument's sake, fully converts, they may just pretty much forget everything that came before them. So, like Chechnya, for example, they don't have any memory of what it was like before Islam.
There is a I forgot what it's called now, but there was in the like, I only know this from Crusade. I found this out like Crusader Kings 2, by the way. So that's a terrible comparison, but there was an offshoot of Christianity in the Caucasus region, which isn't considered by. It's kind of like a blend of Christianity and Caucasus like paganism. And I forgot what it's called, but even the cross is slightly different. The symbol of the crucifix is slightly different. Do you know which one I mean, Mitch, at all?
I know of the Armenian church, but I don't. It's not the one. It's not the one you've.
No,
yeah, it's not that. I can't think of it.
It's not Coptic. It's not Coptic. No, the thing is, I remember because there was somebody who went to the Caucasus Mountains and would sort of like look at and it wasn't really even recognized by any of the other Christian churches as even though, because it was. Would I describe it as a Christian faith? I guess in the sense of the role of Christ, Jesus Christ, you could argue, but it wasn't like along any sort of mainline, like Nicene, Chalcedonian sort of, and no connection to that at all. Let me just see if I can find it a sec. Talk amongst yourselves a sec.
Yeah, I'm trying to look for it because because I know in Iberia, I don't know too much about it because but I will plan it because I know like when I get around to reading about Reconquista, where they had something called Mozarabic, which kind of like it was more Islamic rather than Christian, but yeah, there were certain aspects of influence from both. It was kind of trying to be like a middle ground between them, and it didn't really take off because, well, most people don't know of obvious reasons. It didn't really exist for such a long time. Like it got wiped out after a couple of 100 years of existing. Also, I didn't know of Mozarabic's existence from CK3, so that's how I know of it. And yeah, I know. It's like in Iberia, I know it was a matter of because people have a mistaken idea about the genetics of the area changes. Like, not really. You have upper class who, like some Visigothic nobles who, after the conquest, they convert because they want to keep their position. But by and large, the average guy on the street stays genetically the same as what it was before the Islamic conquest. So that's one thing that it's kind of like a myth about the Reconquista that a lot of people get into it, like, because people think that the Andalusians are that's so swarthy because Arabs, and no, they've always been like that. like the average Andalusian is genetically closer to the likes of us or Norwegians than we are to North Africans.
I'm having troubles. Unfortunately, I'm using Bing, which is why did I use that? That was silly of me to begin with. Hold on a sec. I don't want to start up. Maybe I'll start up Crusader Kings in a minute.
We're just going to turn the stream into like a let's play just to find this information out.
Yeah, just like let's see if I can find the.
Yeah,
I apologize, people. No, I don't apologize. I'm not. No apology. I'm not sorry. Get a horse poke going. Well, that's the obscure reference there.
Yeah, I can't find it. Yeah.
That is annoying. Let me just. Yeah. I think my problem is because I'm typing in like Christian movements in the Caucasus, and it's not. The trouble is, even by them, they don't really consider themselves Christian, even though Christ is a figure in it. So I mean, maybe that's my mistake. That's why it's not.
Yeah, although I'm looking at certain Caucasian regions like Svaneti in Georgia, and it's like he said apparently there's some pagan things they held on to after converted to Christianity, and I can't find anything.
No.
Yeah. So
no, I mean the trouble is like, what's the name of the kingdom that was there? Oh, God.
I know there's Abkhazia. You've got Georgia, Armenia,
Iberia. It's not the Iberian kingdom, is it? No. Yeah, the Caucasian Iberia. Anyway,
yeah, and I've also a place called Albania around neck of the woods, funnily enough.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's that. I'm struggling to think now of which kingdom it could be. But yeah, not knowing us, we'll find it out and we'll just be slapping ourselves, silly, like just face palm after when we find out. But yeah, it's.
Yeah, probably.
People worship their deities as darlings.
Now, I actually think I'm just thinking about it. I think it's the Alans. I think it's like the Alan kingdom. Alania.
Oh yeah, they did. Yeah, they did live around the Caucasus. I'll just look up religion now. I mean, yeah, what was that? Yeah, I'm looking at because I know they did convert to Christianity mainly because of like the Eastern Roman Empire like influencing them and like Georgian missionaries, and yeah, but I think like that neck of the woods though they got de-Christianized from Timur in the Middle Ages. So
yeah, that was it, and there was a branch of like it was. I will. What I'll do is I will if on Discord I'll put it up once I find the branch.
I think it's called Asianism as Ossetians.
Yes, I think that might be the. I think that might be the case. So I just had to kick Aubrey because she'd gone, but she was still on there. I think that might have been, and it was kind of like this really bizarre blend of paganist revivalism, but with Christianity. And I think, you know how in the Greco world you had like it wasn't like polyistic like the other sort of Roman or Celtic or Germanic. You had like this Helios sort of you had like the polyistic gods, but you also had like a supreme god figure. I think that's how in the Caucasus they sort of, you would have Christ head god figure, and then you would have like a pagan system underneath it. That's how you had like that sort of bizarre syncretic relationship with the two, and that's because of like as you said, like because of Christianity was so possibly with the fall, like the loss of Anatolia, it became um, disconnected from mainline Orthodox, because it was originally like, obviously Orthodox missionaries, and then it just deviated back into something else.
Yeah, I know, because I know like with Alans, like they're like the Ossetians. I think to this day they still claim to be like the last descendants of the Scythians, and
Yeah,
yeah.
I mean, a large portion of Alans, there are some in parts of Spain who do claim that they are Iranian, like Indo-Iranian from the Alans, because you did have Alans that settled in parts of Spain with the Visigoths and the uh, uh, what was the Germanic group that settled in like
The
Galatia?
Suebi or the Visigoths.
Swaby, that was it, yeah. Because that you had the Visigoths had a lot of Alans and Indo-Iranians with them as well, and part of their army and groups as well.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, so if there was Spaniards who claim descent from the islands, I mean, perhaps it's not so weird after all that, in Sharp's gold, you have Aztecs being in Spain. Perhaps.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean that's like sort of why they're so good at like the you have like good horse riders and horse people sort of thing. It's like a genetic sort of thing about it. There was one Spanish guy who had was well like slender build, like quite darkish skin, looked quite Iranian, and I mean, I think he said to him like he sort of like says, "Oh, it's because I'm not Visigothic or Carthaginian or Celtic or something. I'm actually like part of the Alan Alans or something that came in." He said, "Oh yeah, I think it comes from central Spain," and it is possible, I guess. Like if you had like a portion of the population, I do wonder if he did like a test on DNA, how much would be from the steppes or something.
Yeah, and now there's like towns in China that claim descent from Roman legions from like 2,000 years ago. Like, I think going back to. Yeah,
Yeah, I don't know about that. I think that's
yeah, because I mean, I think like the furthest, because I remember reading about Chinese merchants who the gods far as Persia, and basically the Persians lied to them, saying Rome was a lot farther than it actually was, so they gave up, and so technically, the Romans and Chinese never actually met one another, but they knew each other existed. So that's
yes.
because it's worth noting, like, but I know like in Latin we have the word Sinica to refer to China, which literally just means place of silk.
That's right. Yeah, that was all their sort of understand, and also for the Romans, their information of China all came from either Parthian or Sasanian, um, merchants, and any other knowledge would have been from either Alexander or the Seleucids or the Bactrian, like anyone writing chroniclers from the Seleucid or the Bactrian kingdom as well. So that their knowledge would have been historical, and it makes sense because the Silk Road really predominantly went. I mean, it went through the Parthian and the Sassanid Empire. So they had like a I guess you could say there was like the massive financial reason why, from the Persian point of view, to keep Rome and China separate. You know. have stops at one ends.
We're getting into areas that you may have noticed I fell silent. I've nothing to offer to this conversation.
Yeah, sorry. So yeah, my topic. I was going to just say before we head off. My topic tonight, I was going to want to talk about briefly was there's been a big furore with reform, and on sort of the back of the stuff of Iran. Sorry, not reform, restore actually, restore Britain. And this week, I think it was this week, the Twitter account for Restore put a tweet out saying that prescribed the IRGC, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard, and that caused a bit of pushback from quite a few people online, some that we know. The main area of pushback was that that is a Zionist talking point. And then immediately after that, you had US Congressman Randy Fine, who is this Florida congressman who is a big APAC guy who was tweeting at Restore at Rupert Lowe saying he agrees with this. And there's been, I mean, but then Charlie Downs came out and was sort of counter signaling that, and it's kind of it's caused some to say, well, this is just another Zionist operation, fell for it again award and move on, it's done, it's over now because they've sort of sold out, they've taken the 7,000 pounds or whatever there's others that said, no, you're just reading in too much into this. This is just silly. We all knew this was going to happen. That there was going to be some, there'll be some crossover talking point that you didn't like. And I remember going on the stream, Twitter space, where I was saying, like, listen, guys, in this country, you cannot have a political party that is white only. You can't keep non-white people out. It's not allowed under Electoral Commission rules. So I did say with Restore Britain, expect to see maybe like the odd one or two Indian, Sikh, or African black person or Caribbean. It's going to happen.
Yeah, and I remember the same on a Discord server, but I know so on the point of that tweeted with IRGC, I just thought, like, because to me it's not really something I'd cack the bed of. I just thought it was a bit of a performative virtue signal because it's like if Britain were to ban FSB from Britain, it's like, well, it's just a virtue signal. There's no teeth to it really. It's just it's just kind of like a symbolic way of saying we agree with America on this foreign policy goal we're doing in the Middle East. So, which is why I didn't. It's very sort of low effort kind of thing in my opinion, which is why I didn't really tweet about it or say anything about it. So I just thought it was a controversy, like storm in a teacup to me.
It is, but it does beg the question, at the end of the day, because I from what I understand was when there's been response from like Charlie Downs and stuff is what they were sort of talking about all obviously like foreign influence, because it goes back to foreign influence in the IRGC. They do operate within Iraq and everything, and I think Lukey World does have a point here. The thought comes because when I think it, I was like, well, who does this serve? If he said like, look, you have British nationals who serve in foreign military, and there are Victorian laws still on the books about that, and we shouldn't allow that to be. Now, if Restore said like, listen, we can't have, you can't be a British national and serve in foreign militaries because that is not unacceptable. That's and there should be some form of punishment and penalties for that. That's one thing, because then you can say, well, that's a generic thing. But the problem is that that IRGC comment is very much tied to what's going on at the moment.
Yeah, and I remember like I think AA was the guy who said something about along the lines because when Georgia Maloney got elected, she was very much of that like Atlanticist kind of like let's go on board with what America wants to do, blah blah blah. And you know the whole thing was packaged as well. If we just signal that we are going ahead with all the Zionism and all that kind of stuff, then we get to do whatever we want domestically. And actually, that's not the case. Like, but they'll still, like, you still have a US aid stuff still funding the NGOs and so on, but it still happens anyway.
And I fear that that's what Rupert might try and do. Like, well, we'll get like George Mappin from, you know, like that sort of that Scientologist who, with his Lancelot Castle in Cornwall, and we'll get like these sort of people, and you know, you'll have like maybe even like Elon Musk and Palantir and stuff, and we'll sort of like say all this, but then we'll when we get in, we're going to do the opposite. And the problem is, I don't think Rupert or his guys can do the gypsy switch. Usually, the gypsy switch is done on them, as there's you know, saying goes. So you don't get the drop on them; they get the drop on you, and I think that's what happened with Maloney. Is she tried to play both sides, and I mean now she's taken a stand where she's, you know, critical of America, and she's sort of toeing the line with maybe like not as hardline as Spain is, but sort of sympathetic with you know, that sort of stand. I don't know what you think, Mercian.
I mean, as you said, it's because of the laws of this nation. It was bound to. I was waiting for something to happen with Restore because they were never going to be perfect because very few people are.
I mean,
I think my takeaway is it depends how bad this sort of stuff gets.
Yeah, I mean, if you have, I mean, Rupert is a bit of a. I mean, I did a criticism of Thatcherism and a lot of the free market stuff. Rupert doesn't entirely disagree with that economic model, and he's much. What is it? He's quite interested in Ayn Rand, for example. Randian or whatever. He has like that you know, mindset like, there.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, he was born in 1957, I think. So he got rich under Thatcher. So I can understand why he's a lot more of that mindset. To be fair, yeah. So you can give him some slack. But on the other hand, it's also, well, you know, you wonder how much, because Charlie Downs is very much of a more, I don't know where you put it.
Like a nationalist, like just like a nationalist. I mean, Charlie Downs is kind of like a nationalist and a bit more of a protectionist, economic protectionist, you could say.
Yeah, he certainly is not this dyed-in-the-wool libertarian, but you get other guys like someone like Rupert Lobing, and that's the thing. I think where Rupert Lowe might, like, again, like because one thing I don't think people talk about enough when it comes to Trump with Iran is I think Trump, he just hates Iran because the boomers are still yet wanting about revenge for what happened in 1979 when Jimmy Carter was president. They're still wanting revenge for that, and I think Trump is motivated in part by that, not just all the Zionism, but also just the boomers wanting revenge for what happened to them. Like, well, what happened to what happened to a hostage crisis under Jimmy Carter, and yeah.
And like, also, I mean, not.
I will also say as a final point, someone said about the dual citizens fighting with IDF. I think if you were to raise that to Rupert Lowe, I think he would be fair-minded in saying, well, we're going to ban everyone from whoever fought with IDF from coming back, in the same way he'd ban people for, you know, being pro-Palestine. So I would say there's a sense of fairness from him on that one.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I think they should have done a follow-up tweet and said, like, listen, we would maybe if he did follow up tweet saying we're going to prescribe Mossad as a terrorist organization or something like that, but yeah, I think to us, I think the tweet was quite poorly formatted, and usually whenever they get criticism, whether it be from right or left, they do tend to respond, and they'll either dig their feet in or engage in conversation. On this particular tweet, they didn't. You only had Charlie Downs and a few others come out. So there is suggestion that the person running Lowe's account, that they basically got someone in Restore has been, the person running the account is some sort of Zionist who's there controlling things from that angle. I mean, I don't know what's going on that front. And not to shit on his sort of hero, Ayn Rand, but in my mind, she was a crazy, brackets, bourgeois, witch. In my mind, she just was just mad in a lot of her ideas, and I think she had she was this globalized citizen, and I was listening to that debate between David Starkey and Connor Tomlinson, who again I've been very critical of, and I'm still critical of him, but I think they were on the sort of debate of anywheres and nowheres and nationhood and things like that. I do think people who are nomadic, people like Ayn Rand and others of her ilk, and even people, British nationals who are nomadic, say in that sense, there is a level of dysfunctionality there where they have a very warped perception of the vast majority of how the vast majority of people live, and that is a problem in on itself.
Yeah, I always thought libertarian was a bit weird because I forget which one it was. The one libertarian economist who was all for Enoch Powell without rivers of blood speech, but then the same libertarian who was all for illegal immigration into America because it drives down wages. I forget which one.
Yeah. That you have
Milton,
things like that.
I think it's Milton Friedman. I think it was
Milton Friedman. Yeah. And then you have sorry, Milton, were you actually listening to Enoch Powell's speech? What's going on here, friend? Did you miss both his Birmingham address and other sort of speeches and television appearances? He was not ambiguous. He was because a lot of the time this was before the Race Relations Act or around the time, so he was very candid and honest and quite blunt about his thoughts on the issue. So there's no way you could confuse it, and it's one of the reasons why a lot of people today don't, particularly in mainstream politics, they get funny when Enoch Powell and stuff. Is because I mean, he pointed out something which was at the time was very visible. I don't know if he ever actually talked about the he talked about the effects of mass migration on a social level, sociological level, economic level, but he didn't really talk about those that are bringing them in and the big business behind it. I don't know if he ever talked about. I don't know if he ever talked about that. He may have done.
Well, I mean, because the thing about Powell was because Thatcher said she was a Powellite, and basically she was more of a Powellite in terms of the economic stuff, because a lot of what Thatcher did economically, Powell would have done if he was Prime Minister. So I wonder if that'll be why perhaps Powell, because Powell was very much of a not full-on libertarian, but a lot more, but of that same degree as what Margaret Thatcher turned out to be. Although it's worth noting that when Thatcher called herself a Powellite back in the 80s, Powell was actually said, well, did she bother listening to any more speeches or something, or words to that effect? So it's always been, if you want to say how much you can say about Thatcher read into Powell versus only take or just like misreading what Powell wanted. Because of course Thatcher, she because there's that famous Tory poster from like 1983, I think it was, which says like this black man is an Englishman or this black man is British, and yeah. Whereas Powell would never have done that if he was leading the Tory party.
Yeah, yeah. And you see, that's how far back that this sort of nonsense goes. Yeah. And then that's how you have the likes of some Tory and Reform people say, like, Afghans who arrived here 10 seconds ago are British, and they're new British.
And then Reform can get them to stand as candidates.
Yeah.
The only thing I can think of was because some people say that Enoch Powell was purposefully hiring foreigners before back when he was Health Secretary, which that wasn't actually true. Like the hiring was not within his remit as Health Minister or Health Secretary. So like that's I think that's
Mitch, correct me if I'm wrong, wasn't the like the Windrush and stuff, wasn't that all meant to be, that was sold to the public and government and MPs as they were temporary there to fill gaps in, like,
I know Clement Attlee, he wanted to turn the ship around, but it was Manny Shinwell and I forget the other guy, but of that other certain ethnic group persuasion who in his cabinet who were wanting to keep a ship here because on one hand we were being told we were having a labour shortage, even though we lost much fewer, like because we didn't have a labour shortage after the First World War, despite losing over 1 million guys, whereas Second World War we lose around 400,000 odd, but we all of a sudden have a labour shortage, even though the Labour government weren't reporting it, and basically yeah, it wasn't really meant to be temporary. But Ministry of Labour, but then Manny Shinwell and others, they just kind of prolonged it, and well, it just became a problem we just artificially imported, and it's similar problem to what the Americans have with their black people situation.
Yeah, because we have like this bizarre narrative now from like that been told in schools, is that they they rebuilt Britain for us. We collectively during the Second World War bombed ourselves to into a broken society, and they swooped in and saved us, and the empire ended, and that was it, and and then the NHS was created, new era, new Britain was formed. That's the sort of dystopian fucked up version of history that comes from that. Aaron Hook in the chat says in other speeches and articles, Powell did mention business advertising in foreign countries. Yeah, he did talk. Yeah, that's good. He did mention that. Yeah. I do think because we obviously we talk about Labour and the politicians and stuff. I do think on the right needs to actually focus on companies more. We need to be more radical, like saying like no, like and not just like Amazon, but whether it be hotel chains or things just
yeah, I know loads of Caesars were saying about how the Green Party were not incorrect in saying big business or screwing us over. It's just the one saying how, or rather they'll just
they don't care. The thing is, this is funny, like with the leftists, is the Green Party will say big business is screwing us over, and then they'll say they're not paying a fair enough wage and they treat the worker like shit, and it's like, yeah, but the trouble is all the workers are brown and like weren't born in this country, so that they're exploiting them, but at the same time they're exploiting other people from a different country, like that is the problem, and then they're sort of like suppressing the wages of like I mean under when you had migration from the Baltic and workers from the Baltic and Eastern Europe, it was the carpentry and electrician trades, which were kept, were kept down because you had the labor pool of those types were coming into this country, and wages were pressed. Even bricklayers, wages didn't go up. It only went up actually after Brexit, where you did have people from Eastern Europe slowly returning back there. You did see a slight bump. This was quite a funny sort of thing that occurred during this time.
Yeah, I remember we have a Boris wave come in during COVID.
Yeah, then you had the Boris wave,
yeah.
And then suddenly, like, the Polish immigrants didn't seem so bad.
Do you remember that the 2000s? Everyone complaining about the Polish. It's sort of like, you think that's the problem now? Jesus.
Yeah. Well, Britain's like the first wave of for Great Britain in the modern age, was you had the immigrants from the Pale in Eastern Europe, which did cause. I mean, I'll be careful what I say on that, but
well, it did cause problems because like there were a lot of drunken Eastern Europeans as well, and a lot of littering from it. Like it wasn't unfounded. But
yeah, and you had political radicals as well, who then and then that would become like the whole identity, because then they would all like move to the East End. That would become the whole identity, and then like the East End has this great identity of radical left-wing politics, and it's like, yeah, from some fucking pale immigrant who arrived here, who sort of engaged in anarchist or socialist Marxist street thuggery. Yeah, great. Do you know what? Thinking about it, this country accepts the radicals and extremists from other countries. For way over like 150 years now, probably even a bit longer than that. To come to think of it, we accept the most extreme people who are hated in their own countries.
Is this the magic soil myth? This sort of like, once they come over here, they won't be so radical, or is there something more nefarious than that?
Oh, I know, like Voltaire, for example, he was given refuge over here back in the 18th century, and like a lot of his works were used to influence the French Revolution. Then you have guys like Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels, who do a lot of their writing over here. I mean, you also have famously the Bolsheviks, who, if you read, for example, if someone reads, I think it's Anthony Beaver or Sean McMegan's book, like they'd be meeting in British pubs over in London, just discussing what to do with the revolution when they get back to Russia one day.
Yeah, but Bowden talked about it in that Vanguard speech. He said you'd have like half a dozen, maybe like 20 to 50 men meeting, and that they would, and that's how you had like, and this is the birth. Because the funny thing, the birth of radical left-wing politics in this country was brought by foreigners who lived in different societies to ours, but ended up bringing all those grievances, not too dissimilar to what you see today. I mean, like, I talk about how, like, in London on one weekend you had like this Albanian Independence Day where they were all like driving around in their pimped up Mercedes, shooting fireworks off, and then getting into a fight with some like Indians on one street. Then the next week you have some Iranian diaspora twerking in front of the Iranian embassy. I mean, and all of this is happening within London, and not even like shantytown shit areas of London. This is happening in, Chelsea. This is happening in relatively decent parts of historically decent boroughs of our capital. And this this is why people And I do. If there are anyone from Restore watching this, if one thing I want them to take away from this is you talk like the young generation, the people who are sick of voting. When they see this on Facebook, or because everyone's online now, when they see like the state of our capital or their local town, and they're sick and tired of reform, they're sick and tired of all the political parties, this is what they want sorted. They don't want to have like this, free forum, like this like forum of this multinational forum where everyone can celebrate or promote or shill their own bizarre cultural heritage in our nation's capital, in our streets. We just don't want it. It's ridiculous, and it's offensive. It's unnecessary, and people have checked our politics. That because of this. And people say, well, how does it affect on you? It has a psychological effect on the nation as a whole. When you see I do wonder how Italians feel when they see foreigners in Italy. When they're outside the arch of what was it, Titus?
Yeah, that one was it about Evergreen College guy? His brother flipped off.
Weinstein and his the Weinstein brothers, and even members of the Knesset as well, who would go there and they do their like middle finger stuff. I mean, if I was an Italian, speaking as a as a Cornish Celtic Roman enjoyer, joking, of course, but talking as of if I was Italian, or even like Italy of like 100 years ago, any foreign national who came to the country and did stuff like that would be beaten, like literally they would be beaten in the street by a mob and like either crucified unironically crucified, or they'd just be thrown out the country. There would be, if anyone did anything remotely like that, there would be severe consequences. There would be, even in most countries, there would be severe consequences. In this country, if anything like that happened, if anybody, desecrated a war memorial or a church, there would be serious consequences. That's what we're talking about here. And it's like, nobody cares, because I think, I think people have been, I think the doom scrolling that Mitch and others talk about, I think the doom scrolling has happened. It's not an online thing. This has happened. This has happened in real life first, and I think it's maybe that's why people retreat to the internet so often now. It's because to be in real life, if you actually return to real life, is unbearable, because reality is, well, it is unbearable if you think about it. If you want to add on that, so that's just me sort of go on my thoughts there.
So I'm fading a little bit. It's after midnight.
That's all right. We'll probably wrap it up in a minute, so we need to probably wrap it. Any other further things, Mitch, Mercian?
No, I'd agree. Yeah. On that point, like for example, I was in Colston, Edward Colston, the statue of a tore down in Bristol. I just built a much bigger one of that. As well as like if I had my way, I'd build like a massive Argonath of probably the tomb. I don't know, probably Robert Clive, just to get all the Pageets Stephen, and then second statue. I'm trying to think who else. If nothing else, just just as like a massive flip off towards or like that trend from years back about toppling down statues of problematic figures, or in the case of London, they were renaming streets of like British war heroes who fought against the Indians in the 1857 rebellion.
Yeah,
and it's
I mean, I no joke, Mitch. I was in London when just after Colston, and I will be honest, I was. I remember we after London with a friend. He pointed out to me that where Karl Marx's tomb, like his grave was, and I was so like black-pilled at that point. What, like in my in my neck of the woods, what I was seeing in the country, you had all the BLM stuff, and I was like, dude, shovels, sledge. I'm joking, of course. I would never do that, but I was like, okay, commies, if we're going for broke, anyway, I'm joking, of course. But when you think, yeah, you're thinking about it, because I just thought to myself, like, at that point, it was quite clearly it's kind of like this. We talk about the civil rights era in America. This was like a similar scale, cultural level attack, and it was also at the same time, and it was all coordinated by the states, the nation states, our national governments, because it was when COVID happened. Of course, we were all in lockdown, so it was a time where people, they could do this. It was easy enough to do this because there'd be no, you couldn't organize any sort of pushback because you break lockdown rules, and then you could just be fined or arrested. So there was no way to really push back against this. Yeah.
Should we wrap up then? I'm fading fast.
Yeah, we'll wrap up. All right. All right. Thanks, guys, and I'll see you all next time. Hopefully, IronDuke can will manage to get his channel back and back and working, because we'll have our history stream on Wednesday, and the idea is we'll be doing the Captain Cook Part 2. If there's any problem, I will say to IronDuke, don't worry, we'll do it on my channel, and then sort of maybe do a channel link, because you can do that now on YouTube, link two channels together with a stream or something like that, or a video. So
the collaboration thing.
Yeah, the collaboration thing might try and do that, if all else fails.
Do you think?
Anyway,
I'll talk to you after when we stop the stream.
Yeah, we'll stop the stream. But thank you guys for joining, and thank you everyone in chat, and I'll see you all next time.